the same suspicion I had when it came to me being on the cover of your newspaper every time the Celtics lost. I love how you said that. You're like, oh, no, that didn't happen. There's no way that you're undercover. and I know he has this newspaper. And every time we lost the game.
By the way, don't take offense to that voice. He does that to everybody. So everyone sounds like that.
I know. You can see this.
I swear to God.
Hold on a second. Let me get the picture here. There it is.
Yeah, that was it.
There it is.
Yeah. Brennan.
That was after the Celtics lost a playoff game in Philly. Because Max's theory was when we win, it's always the front page of your papers. Larry, Danny, Kev. He says, when we lose, it's me and Sheep with the, like this. And I went into the archives. Lost the game in Philly. And it's Max.
With that black guy look going, huh? What happened?
What happened? Right.
And it was just, and you know what? If you want to see him turn more red, all you have to do is talk about this. He will deny this to this day, going, no, it really wasn't. And we look at these papers and see me on the back cover on these losses and going, well, I'm not really sure. Maybe you might have something there.
Yeah, that was like the New Year's Eve for you when I gave you those clippings of those pictures. That was the greatest. You loved that. It was so great.
The thing I find, Dan, to be so striking right now is the fact that how people are going at you. And it's almost a personal front. And I remember that. And the only reason I say that is because anytime I have said anything about Larry Bird that would even turn the page, it seemed like it might have been, and it doesn't even have to be critical, but those people will come out of the woodworks and attack me personally for something I said. One of my examples I give you, I talked about Kevin Garnett. I said, he might be the greatest all-around player the Celtics have ever had.
People got mad at you.
And people went at me as if like I had said something bad. And matter of fact, Greg Dickerson, who was reporting at the time, went to Larry and told Larry that. Larry said, well, Max is going to quit on them like he quit on us. And I didn't even understand that. I was like, what did that have to do with anything? So I guess what I'm saying is, are you surprised with the personal attacks?
No. No, I've been doing this a long time. I mean, again, the social media didn't exist as much, when I was covering you guys, Max, but I was the only guy that wrote about Larry getting into that barroom fight in the 85 finals when you guys lost. And I really felt that was newsworthy because he didn't shoot well after that. And the Celtics didn't win the playoffs that year. And they had a really good team, as you know. That team was stacked. I know you got blamed for the whole thing, even though they had 4 Hall of Famers in the thing, but I thought, and again, had there been social media then, again, I would have had my house burned down on that one too, because people love these guys more than they love their own families. And that's a little bit skewed. And I understand it. When Tom Brady was cheating, deflating those footballs, I wrote about that, small thing, but they were doing it. And again, nobody wants to hear that. And people still remind you that stuff. So there's certain guys that are sacred in this town, and David is one, Tom was one, Larry was one, and that's it. And I understand that comes with it, but nobody's perfect. And when stuff happens, I feel obligated to put my opinion to it. That's what I get paid to do. But the personal nature of the attacks, part of this, Max, is anonymity. You got your name on there. You go on the radio, people know it's Cedric Maxwell talking. Same with me. So we're a little more careful with that. But when you're behind a keyboard and you're anonymous, you just, you can kill anybody and say the meanest things. And that's what Twitter's all about, and just, taking out your grudges. And, it's a lot of lonely, anonymous people, and that's the way to do it. Most people wouldn't say that to your face. I mean, I don't think too many of your critics would get in your face and say this or that. And, of course, I have, and, you were always polite about that. But there's just not a lot of accountability when you have anonymous commentary, because you're just going to get.
Well, look at this. Robert Parrish's wife wasn't, anonymous. She came right at you. You wrote a few things about him, and she would just blast into you as soon as she saw you. You
did not want.
What'd you say? I want to hear these stories. What'd you say? What
you didn't want to be on the other side of Mrs. Chief. I can tell you that. It was not good.
Dan didn't really write anything that was really bad about Robert. It maybe was the holdout with the contract. He didn't get enough or something like that. And all I remember is Nancy just going ballistic when she saw you. She went at you like, you know, you had stole money out of a damn pocketbook. I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah. And everybody loved that. First time I talked to Larry out there, he goes, yeah, I heard Chief's wife, you know, beat you up with her purse. You know, people just, it was always kind of a amusement, point of amusement for everybody. Because as Max knows, Nancy was very fiery and did not hold back and kind of would go at anybody. And I was on the list at that time because he didn't like me, she didn't like me. But I remember how Reggie Jackson was Mr. October in baseball. Well, I used to have this version that Chief didn't do as well in the playoffs as he did in the fall. So I would call him basketball's Mr.
Okay.
October. And you don't want to be Mr. October in basketball because those are the games that don't count.
Yeah.
So
especially back then, they had like 12 preseason games in October.
that might have been kind of a low blow. I don't know, but you know, stuff like that. It's like when I said Bucky had no clue, and Max never let that one go either. You know, so that was
you know what? Here's
Max doesn't let anything go,
Dan.
Anything
Here's a
go.
Johnson story that you absolutely love, and this is when everything happened. Actually, Bernard King, and this is one of the best. Well, we can go over this. Well, Bernard King had been scoring like hell against Detroit before they played us, and so they win the series. They're going to play us, the Knicks, and they're writing all these stories about Bernard King coming in and da, da, da. So Dan Shaughnessy comes to me and said, "Hey, Bernard King is scoring 40 a game. What are you gonna do about it?" And I looked at him. I said, just like this. I said, "Ain't no bitch gonna walk like this, score 40 points on me." And Dan looked at me. He's like, "Well, I'm about to write that down." I said, "I don't give a shit. Write it down if you want to." And he wrote it the next day in the paper. KC went crazy. Bernard King went crazy. But that was a lesson I learned about, you know, where you would go as a reporter. Because when I said, go ahead and write it down, you're like, well, I am. And I didn't believe that you actually were going to write it down. And you did.
That was a great moment. And of course, we went to New York, and you know, Max, we did shut him. You know, the Celtics shut him down a couple games, and he got 40 in Game 4. And oh man, the New York Post had the bitches back on the back cover, and oh man, it was just it was crazy times. Crazy. You know, ask Huey Brown about that. He still remembers that. That was one of the great series of all time, and a lot of back and forth on that. It was wonderful.
Did you get so much enjoyment as a broadcaster, as a writer, because we were so open at that time, and we would tell you whatever you would ask us, you better be ready because we're going to tell you the truth. Not like the players today who were like,
I wish they were like that with us.
Maybe possible,
Yeah,
but right now it was like, okay, if you're bold enough to ask, damn it, we're bold enough to say it.
It was the only team I ever covered that was like that. The only other time you encounter that kind of honesty and candor and was talking to boxers. Boxers always talk like that. You know, it's like, yeah, I'm going to kick the crap out of this guy, you know, but that whole team, you know, Max, ML, Mikhail would do it. Danny do it. Larry do it sometimes. And it was gold for us. And, you know, for poor Casey, because he did not do it, you know, he was the opposite of that. And he had no control over that. But I remember when he didn't like Max saying about Bernard, you know, being a bitch, you know, Max said, if you're scared, get a dog. You know, that was it. And you know, that was just, you know, he was smart enough to let these guys be themselves. And boy, it made for the most colorful. That's why the title of my book is Wish It Lasted Forever. Because I mean, again, when you're a writer, you got those kind of talkers, and they were all world trash talkers, that whole team. You guys were the best.
What are your favorite teams that you've covered?
That's
any
it.
Sport.
The Celtics, 83, 84 Celtics are my favorite team of all time. It's the first year Casey became coach. You know, Fitch kind of had to go, and, you know, Max was still at the height of his powers. And, you know, Larry was starting his MVP run, Chief and Kevin, the whole thing. ML was on the way out, but he was still able to contribute. So, and DJ had just come on board, who we all loved. It was just, you know, a stand-up guy. DJ is smart enough to always criticize himself, so you could never criticize him because he'd say worse stuff about himself. So that was a good weapon he had. And that whole team, I mean, really, it was, I mean, Chief didn't like me, but it didn't matter. I mean, there's so many other guys, you know, a guy like Scott Wedman didn't say much of anything, but, you know, for the most part, it was, again, all world trash talking team. And the Celtics Lakers finals, I mean, I did The Red Sox winning the World Series in 04, coming back to the Yanks 3-0, biblical 86 years. That's the best overall story I ever covered. The best team, the best single event is the 84 final Celtics Lakers. All those Hall of Famers back and forth, the 2-2-1-1-1 format, the trash talking that went on, McHale's takedown, Max hopping my back, all that stuff. I mean, you go back, and I hope these young people appreciate that. Go watch the ESPN 30 for 30 on it. It's the greatest thing ever.
Max has a good story about that, Max. Tell him about the Tatum story.
Oh, just Jason Tatum. He tells the story, Dan, that he really didn't know who I was. And so after the 30 for 30, I'm out on the court before a game, and he walks in, and he's walking in ready to shoot around, and he says, cornbread. And I looked at him, I'm like, dude, what's wrong with you? He said, man, I saw that 30 for 30. Damn, you a bad motherfucker, man. Look, he didn't even know who I was, but that 30 for 30 made us took us into a whole another level, another generation of fans because my kids looked at me and said, damn, Dad, you said that? Or you were talking to James Worthy like that? It's like, yeah, I didn't have no friends. This is what I loved during our era. Not only as broadcasters, we hated all these other people, but we hated the opposition just as much. And that's something that I look at now in sports, which is completely different. Do you think so?
It's absolutely. Yeah, everybody's hugging everybody after the games, and there was no hugging Bill Lambier after those Detroit games, and no hugging going on there. And
wait, they weren't swapping jerseys after the game, Dan? Really? They weren't taking pictures and swapping jerseys?
Larry hated Lambier so much. His whole All-Star weekend was worked around whether Lambier was a reserve or not. So every year when Larry got named a starter, he'd say, you guys got to come tell me when the reserves are announced, because I can't stand when Lambier makes the team, because I got to go. It ruins my weekend. I got to go to practice on Saturday and get on the bus, and Bill's sitting there and he goes, good morning, Larry. And I got to say, fuck you, Bill, because he did not want any part of being a teammate of Bill Lambier at any point in the season.